You are listening to Mindset and Metabolism Mastery, episode 15. Do you start every morning strong and committed to eating healthy? But every night around 8 p.m., you are hit with a major snack attack. Today, we're going to look at one of the top struggles with staying on track, and that's nighttime snacking, and how to actually end this super frustrating habit once and for all. Let's go.
Welcome to Mindset and Metabolism Mastery, a show for women who are tired of feeling hopeless, defeated, and frustrated with their bodies and want to have more energy to show up every day as the best version of themselves. I'm holistic nutrition consultant Shannon Hagel, and I can help you reprogram your brain to create bulletproof consistency with ease and address your personal hormonal imbalances that are leading to weight gain. Life can feel a whole lot better with a body you love, delicious food, and a little wine. And I'm here to help you get there. Ready to lose weight and feel amazing in your body? Let's dive in.
Welcome, friends. Today we are talking about one of the top self-sabotaging habits that I see and definitely struggled with myself, and that is nighttime snacking. I know so many of you wake up feeling really motivated, right? Ready to lose weight once and for all, eat healthy. Your resolve is strong. You start off with a healthy breakfast. You pack the salad for lunch. You are committed to saying no to all the treats at the office. But time and time and time again, no matter how good and how strong you were all day, you are hit with this insatiable urge around 8 p.m. to dive into that pantry. And this becomes such a difficult habit to break for people because not only are we faced with the intense urges and cravings around that time and the habit of giving in and actually eating the snacks, but then we're left with all this frustration and guilt and anger with ourselves for having been so good all day just to blow it at the end of each and every day. And that cycle usually leads to more nighttime snacking, right? Because we think, screw it, I already messed it up. This nighttime snacking is a really big self-sabotaging cycle that I see because it has so many different layers. Now you have the obvious reasons for the nighttime snacking that are more physical, right? So maybe you were under eating all day long. So by the time 8 o'clock rolls around, you are ravenous. Your blood sugars have been all over the place because you really weren't nourishing your body. And so you just feel completely out of control. Those hunger cues have been ramped right up because your body is literally yelling at you, being like, please feed me. Or the other physical one that I think is really common, and that is, eating a lot of diet foods that are really nutrient depleted, right? Like rice cakes. What is rice cakes about? Does anyone actually enjoy rice cakes? There's nothing to them. No flavor, no enjoyment at all. They're like air. But there's also no nutrients in there. Even if it's not rice cakes that are your diet foods of choice, but you've been eliminating really important macronutrients in your diet, like protein, like fat, like high fibrous vegetables, your body is going to be sending out those signals for you to go get the vitamins, the nutrients, minerals that it needs. So it sends out those cravings. So those are obviously two really big pieces of the puzzle. However, what I think is much more common and such a more challenging issue to solve is nighttime hunger that is fueled by our brains, because we can't escape our brain, right? We can fix a nutrient deficiency issue pretty easily. We can eat more food if we're not getting enough caloric intake to actually support our body functions throughout the day. That's a pretty easy fix. But the mental game is the part that people really struggle with. It's not such an easy fix. I think nighttime snacking can be really confusing for people, especially if you have been so good all day. You haven't been snacking on all the things. You've said no to the foods that don't serve you. You've been eating healthy. You've had strong resolve. And to see all of that work go out the window, I think is absolutely defeating. So why does this happen at nighttime? Why do we struggle at nighttime so much more than other periods of the day? Because typically we don't wake up needing a cupcake or popcorn or a bowl of chips. Typically, we don't have too much of an issue making healthier choices earlier on in the day. If you think about why we actually make choices that do not support our goals, like where that's actually fueled from, it's really easy to understand why. So I want you to take a minute and just think about what a typical day looks and feels like for you. I know for most of the women I know and in my life, it's busy. Their life is very full. They have lots of responsibilities, lots of people that they are responsible for. Maybe you have kids and you wake up and you're just slammed right into the chaos first thing in the morning, right? Getting lunches ready, getting breakfast ready, making sure that people have changed their underpants. Or maybe you love to hit the gym first thing in the morning. So you're setting that alarm clock a couple hours before you actually have to get ready to go to work. You're trying to create that space for you to actually get it in. Or maybe you have a very full, high responsibility job that takes a lot of your mental energy, a lot of your time. Maybe you're checking all three of these boxes. But what I know from my own experience and from all those women around me is that our lives are busy. They are stressful. They are chaotic. And we fill them so full. Not only do we fill them full of stuff and actions, but we fill them full of shoulds. I should do this. I need to do that. The to-do list is never ending. And so what happens during the day is it's a lot easier to stay on track nutritionally because we're so busy, because we're actually distracted by all of the things around us. We're able to distract from the reasons why we would want to eat in the first place, other than hunger, with all of the extras, all of that distraction. But when your day is go, 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 you're building up this resistance, this fatigue, using up all your willpower so that by the time the end of the day rolls around, you're exhausted physically, mentally. When we're in that state of physical and mental exhaustion, not only do we start to slow down a little bit, but things start to get a little more quiet, which means all of the thoughts, all of the feelings that you've been repressing, that you've been distracting yourself from all throughout the day can finally have their moment, can finally be heard. And it's these feelings of boredom or disconnect, stress, loneliness, resentment, frustration, overwhelm. It's these feelings that get to bubble up to the surface. Now we don't have those endless things to do to distract us from those feelings because we're too tired to actually do them anymore. We get the kids to bed. We sit down on the couch. We finally have that moment to decompress. We crave the feeling of relaxation or comfort or reward for a job well done. And that's when those cravings and urges really start to hit. Anytime you're ever eating for any other reason other than hunger, it is emotionally driven. The food fulfills something for us, either fulfills that need to distract, continue that distraction in a much easier way than the endless to-do list, but to feed that distraction from those uncomfortable feelings and thoughts that we didn't want to acknowledge throughout the day, or to spur a feeling within us, right? Give us that dopamine hit so we can feel that sensation of relief, even though that relief is usually very short-lived because it's often immediately swapped with guilt and frustration and shame. And because we don't know how to just be, how to just exist in our bodies, how to just be with our feelings and our thoughts without trying to mask them, without trying to buffer them with these outside forces, we turn to that nighttime snacking. And it becomes such an ingrained part of our behavior because it does work. So even though the lack of structure or less structure in the evenings often leaves us really vulnerable to this nighttime snacking, it's not actually the reason for it. So the answer is not to keep going, push yourself, fill that time, that space, that energy with something else. And this is usually where people make the mistake. We want to find a different distraction. We want to replace the food eating with a different buffer. I see these suggestions from coaches and influencers all the time. When you have a craving, drink a glass of water, right? Take up knitting if you can't put down the popcorn when you're sitting in front of Netflix. Go for a walk instead. Snack on some celery instead of the chips. And now all of these are great swaps, don't get me wrong. And I'm here for all of them. However, swapping the distraction still keeps the need for a distraction. When you swap out the distraction for something healthier, you certainly get better results than when you were chowing down on some of those blood sugar disrupting foods that are going to crank up your fat storage hormones. But it's usually temporary. It's a temporary solution because you haven't actually solved the habit, the self-sabotaging cycle that was driving the action in the first place. So you're constantly having to redirect that desire to knitting or to celery instead of the snacks. So if this is a self-sabotaging cycle that you actually want to eradicate, you need to rewind all the way back to your morning. Nighttime snacking is a habit that starts right from the get-go, right from the moment you wake up. How you're thinking throughout your day builds your desires all the way until that 8 p.m. time slot where you get that snack attack. So rewinding all the way to first thing in the morning and looking at how you're thinking about your life, yourself, all throughout the day that is leading you to need to buffer those feelings and emotions at the end of the day, where you don't have any gas left in the tank to actually distract from it physically. So if you have that sense that you're super busy and you have to do all of it and everything is on you and your spouse doesn't help enough with the kids and your boss isn't grateful and you do so much for everyone else and nobody's looking out for you, any of these thoughts, any of these beliefs, these shoulds, these I have tos, telling ourselves these things all day long is just building that need to silence it at the end of the day. Nighttime snacking begins in the morning with what you choose to think about you, your life, those around you. Because it's in the quiet moments when everything that you've been distracting yourself from thinking all day long actually can bubble up to the surface. So nighttime snacking, that urge, that intense desire at the end of the day is a sign. It is a beaming spotlight to tell you that there's something going on in your brain that is creating this desire that isn't being addressed. So slowing down and really thinking about and paying attention to how you're showing up throughout your day in your own brain, maybe not outwardly to the rest of the world, but in your own brain. What are you telling yourself that is building up these emotions that you want to avoid? What emotions are you actually trying to avoid at the end of the day? Or what are you even seeking to feel? I know a big one for me when I really was struggling with nighttime snacking was almost this desire for like validation, like a reward, that I was deserving of something. I had young kids that were not sleeping through the night. I was working several different jobs. I'd filled my time, my energy with distracting from this feeling of not being enough, of other people in my life not recognizing all the energy and time and effort I was putting in. And of course, little kids are the worst at telling us that we're doing a good job. So by the time the end of the day would come around, my thoughts went immediately to, I deserve this. I deserve this. I needed that validation to feel like I'd done a good job. That yellow star, that reward, it helps me to relax, to unwind. Now, swapping the glass of wine that I always wanted to go for herbal tea would certainly have been a better choice. And I could make an argument that herbal tea is very relaxing. However, it didn't stop the fact that those emotions were building all throughout the day. It didn't stop my need, my desire to feel that validation. And so rewinding all the way back to the beginning of the day, think about how you can actually give yourself what it needs throughout the day so that when it comes time for the calm, the slow down in the evening, you're not so depleted. These emotions haven't been building because you've been giving yourself what you need. Now that might look like changing your thoughts around the shoulds and I have tos is really key, because the truth is there's nothing that we actually have to do. Everything is a choice. And I know there's so many of you that want to argue that point with me, right? Like we have to take care of our kids. We have to do laundry. We have to do the dishes. None of that's actually true, right? If you like a clean kitchen, then you can do the dishes. You can pay someone to do the dishes. You can enlist others in your family to do the dishes, or you can just accept that you have dirty dishes at this point in your life and be okay with it. There are lots of options. It is possible for people to eat over the sink. Now, I'm not suggesting that that's what you have to do, but the mindset shift from I have to I like a clean kitchen, or someone else can do it and it doesn't have to be as good of a job as I do. That's okay. Having that little shift takes so much of the pressure off. I know for me, with my example with the nighttime snacking when my kids were really little, was that resentment piece. I'd taken on all the things, the child rearing, most of the domestic duties. I was still working, and I couldn't see that that was something that I chose. I was expecting my spouse to see the inequalities and step up. But we all live in our own universe. It's not that he wouldn't have helped me, but he couldn't see everything that I was doing because most of it was happening when he wasn't around. But my expectation that he should know, he should be able to think about what needs to happen in a day and realize that it was all getting taken care of and he wasn't doing any of it. Like this expectation that he should step up and be able to read my mind in order to relieve me from my own pain, right? We take the responsibility off of ourselves and we put it onto others to come save us. When I finally accepted that I could ask for what I wanted, or I could also just stop doing the things that didn't really matter, like the shoulds, the I have tos. I could just let some of that stuff go. When I gave myself permission to not have to do the things or just to change my mindset around them, the desire and need to feel that relief, to feel rewarded, disappeared because I didn't feel that injustice anymore. So I didn't need to fuel it with the eating. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you have to. Doesn't mean that you have to be the superwoman warrior that fills her plate with all the things. Even the story we tell ourselves that makes us more valuable as a woman, as a mother, as a friend, as a wife, contributes to this desire and need to buffer those emotions. So nothing actually needs to change in terms of the actions you're taking during the day. If you want to keep doing all the things that you're doing, you are more than welcome to. But changing the way you're thinking about them has to change. If it doesn't, these intense desires at the end of the day, when you've been ignoring them all throughout the day, they will finally get their chance to be heard, to speak, to get that mic. So the less we're letting that build throughout the day, the quieter that voice is going to be, the much easier it's going to be to not sabotage ourselves at the end of the day with nighttime snacking. Another way to start eliminating this nighttime snacking and our deep desire and urges is to start speaking to ourselves differently. The way we think about ourselves and talk about ourselves in our own brains is the meanest shit ever. I want you to think about some of the thoughts you have about yourself throughout the day, like unfiltered. What are some of those thoughts that you have about yourself throughout the day? And then think, would you ever use those words that you're describing yourself as in your dating profile or at a work interview? If the answer is no, that would be humiliating, then something needs to change. Now, I don't mean we have to flip into positive thinking because positive thinking can be very toxic. It doesn't have to be rainbows and daisies and glitter bombs. It can just be the simplest shift. For instance, having a thought like, my body's so disgusting, I hate my stomach, I'm so fat, I need to stop eating, makes us feel real shitty. Now, we don't have to flip into the rainbows and daisies of, I love my body and everything is great, because we're not going to believe that. That's not true. But the shift can be very simple. Instead of, I'm fat, my belly is disgusting, I have to not eat, the shift can be, I have a woman's body and I need to nourish it. It's not rainbows and daisies. It might not make you feel all the warm fuzzies, but is certainly going to have a much more positive impact on how you're showing up throughout your day and therefore in those moments of nighttime snacking or desire. And the last piece of advice I'll give you today is take notice in these moments leading up to that witching hour where that nighttime snacking always likes to knock on your door, and start to take notice of how your body feels. Is it tense? Is your heart palpitating? Are you frustrated with people? Are you just checked out? Are you desiring more in your life? What are the emotions that you're actually trying to avoid feeling? Or what are you hoping the snack, the tasty treat, is actually going to make you feel in that moment? Sometimes that can be easier to identify at the beginning is, what am I wanting to feel in this moment? Right? What am I hoping to get out of this snack, this desire? And that might shed some light on the opposite emotion of what you're actually trying to avoid. So for instance, if you notice the thought of having that nighttime snack or that glass of wine gives you the feeling of relaxation, gives you that feeling of calm, are you trying to avoid something like stress or overwhelm. So while nighttime snacking can certainly be something that is more common when we're under eating throughout the day or not giving our body the right nourishment, the bigger culprit is usually how we're thinking throughout the day that is building up these emotions that we are so resistant to feeling. And so when things become calm in the evening and we are less distracted from those emotions, they're able to bubble up to the surface. And so it's our last ditch effort to try and dull them down again. Emotions are just vibrations in our body. Although they can be mentally uncomfortable for us to experience, they're not dangerous. And so the more you're able to practice just being with those feelings, allowing them to be heard, the less noise they're actually going to make. And this is why I believe deeply in pairing the physical with the mental whenever it comes to making any sort of lifelong changes. Because yes, you have to have the right nourishment, the blood sugar stabilization, the nutrients, so that you're not needing to devour food at the end of the day. But if we overlook the mental piece, it is going to be impossible to ever break these habits that are so conditioned into our psyche. So let your nighttime snacking be a beacon for you, a roadmap to look at the deeper issues that need to be resolved in order to end these self-sabotaging habits permanently. All right, friends, I will see you in next week's episode. You have a beautiful rest of your day.
If you enjoyed today's show and don't want to worry about missing an episode, you can follow the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you could share the podcast with others who you think might benefit from it and leave a rating and review to let me know what you think. It doesn't have to be a 5-star rating, although I sure hope that you love the show. I want your honest feedback so I can create an awesome podcast that provides tons of value. Visit www.thrivefromtheinside.com/podcast launch for step-by-step instructions on how to follow, rate, and review. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Mindset and Metabolism Mastery. If you want to learn more about balancing your hormones, repairing your metabolism, and losing weight with empowerment and ease, visit www.thrivefromtheinside.com. I'll see you next time.